Hi, I'm Benson from AlchemyJ. Today we will be doing something very interesting. I want to share with you how to use Excel formulas to create an AI that plays Tic Tac Toe, and I claim it to be unbeatable. Okay, so for example, I'm the human player. The AI tells me that, okay, it wants to mark A1. Now it's my turn. I will try B1. And it blocks me by marking B3. So I built all this using Excel formula. I did use a function provided by the AlchemyJ Excel Library add-in for pattern matching. Other than that, nothing else. No VBA code, and you do not need to know programming. This video is going to be longer than our previous video as we will be building this game together from scratch. Without further ado, let's get started. I mentioned that we will use a function provided by AlchemyJ for pattern matching. So before we start, you can download and install AlchemyJ if you haven't done so. Go to alchemyj.io, register for an account if you don't have an account, and click download AlchemyJ. If you only want to create this game in Excel, AlchemyJ Excel Library add-in, this one is all you need, and it is the one I use in this video. However, if you want to turn this AI player into an API so that you can build a front end that uses this API to ask for the next move, you should download AlchemyJ Community Edition. Both editions are free to download, so feel free to choose the one you need. And as always, subscribe to this channel for more tips and tutorial about Excel and AlchemyJ. After you have got AlchemyJ installed in Excel, the first thing you want to do is to create a new workbook, and then go to the AlchemyJ ribbon and click this Initialize Model button. This will initialize the workbook so that you can use AlchemyJ functions in this workbook. You can type equal AJ and you'll see a list of AJ functions. These are the functions provided by AlchemyJ add-in. If you see this list, that means your AlchemyJ add-in is installed correctly. And notice that I saved this workbook in the XLSM format. This is required by AlchemyJ because it uses some macro in this workbook. And also I've already copy and paste some data here. These are game board states. I will explain this, what they are, where I get them, how to generate them later in the video when we actually use this data. The first thing I want to do is to draw the game board. Okay, so game board. Basically, it's just a 3x3 table. I want to add some borders so that we can see it clearly. I will also name these columns by letters A, B, and C, and then the rows using numbers 1, 2, 3. So for example, the center position here is called B2. B2. The bottom right corner here is called C3. So when I say position C3, I mean the C3 on this game board, not the cell C3 here. The human player will use not, and I represent it using a capital O. And the AI player will use crosses, which we can use X to represent it. The human player will also need to know the next move of the AI. So I put next move here. Later on, when we have defined the model, we will fill in a formula here to tell the player what is the next move that AI wants to play. Okay, to make the current state of the game board easier to process, I want to represent the marks in a row instead of this matrix. So, okay, current state. This order position from left to right, top to bottom here. So the first one is A1, then B1, C1, next row is A2, B2, C2, and A3, B3, C3. Okay. It will also help if I define an index for each of them, starting from 1 to 9. Okay. We will refer to the mark of each position here. So this one, A1 is refers to this cell. However, if it is empty, I want to represent it. If B3 is empty, I want to change it to a dot. Okay. So if it's not empty, we can just copy this value. Okay. Copy this formula all the way. Okay, this one I need to modify it because it's on the next row. So this one should refer to this here, B4. Okay, copy this. This one as well. B5. Okay, let's give it some example. For example, I put a knot here, and then maybe a cross in the middle, and a knot at the end. Okay, it works. I also want to put all this together and make it a single string. This is easy, so I just concatenate. I just use concat and concatenate all this cell, and it will make one string. Name it state string. Okay, let's try this out again. So the state string for this is it contains all the dots because dot represent empty position. If I put a knot here, then the first character becomes an O. If I put a cross at the end, the last character become an X. Okay. What about I put another O here? Great, I think it works. Before we write any formulas, let's lay down the strategy we are going to implement. If you Google Tic Tac Toe AI strategies, you will find many results. The one I'm building is rather simple. It's a defensive strategy. We let the human player goes first, so the player has the advantage. And yeah, let's lay it out here. Strategy. Okay. The first one, the first step, we need to determine whose turn is this, because we will use some pattern matching functions. It may take a while for Excel to calculate them. So it helps if we determine whose turn is it. If it is the player turn, then we do not need to run those functions. Second step, we shall list all the possible moves available to the AI, and then we can choose from. Third, play the move if it immediately wins the game. Okay, so we have all the possible moves. If any of the move will make the AI wins the game on the next turn immediately, we will definitely take that move. Okay, that makes sense. Step 4, we want to eliminate moves that make AI loses immediately. Okay, so what this means is that we have a few possible moves, and we don't want to take a move that will make the AI AI loses on the next turn. We definitely don't want that. And the 5th one, we pick the move that leads to the largest number of win terminal states. This means, okay, if we have multiple possible moves, how do we choose which one to pick? So we pick the one that can lead to most winning states. Okay. And the last step, 6. Otherwise, let's pick the move that leads to the largest number of draw states. Okay, if we get to step 6, that means it is impossible for the AI to win the game. So the next best thing to do is to try to make a draw. So if there are multiple moves that can reach a draw state, we should pick the one that reaches the largest number of draw states. Hopefully this strategy makes our AI unbeatable. We can now go ahead and implement the first step. The first step is to determine whose turn is it. So it should be easy. AI's turn. And the way we can calculate this is to count the number of O's in this game board and see whether there are more O's than X. We make an assumption that the human player will go first. So what we can do is to use this formula count if we only want to count the O's, count if this range, and then the criteria is O. This gives us the number of O's in the game board. If it is greater than the count if again, same game board. This time we count the number of X. Okay, this is true. So 2 knots here and only 1 cross. That means it is AI's turn. Okay, what if I place an X here? Okay, it turns to false. Okay, that means it is the human's turn. I will also make this field a name so that I can use it in my formula later. Create from selection. Okay, AI's turn. Good. Next, step 2, we want to list all possible moves. Okay. So I want to know the state after this move. I just copy these coordinates here to here so that it's easier to see. What we want to do here is basically we take this state string. This is the current state. Check each character one by one. If it is an O or an X, we don't need to do anything because it means that position already contains a mark. But if it is a dot, it is a possible move, then we can replace it with an X. That will be the state string after the AI plays this move. So enter this formula, equal, replace the state string here, and then starting from, okay, we can use the index here. So for A1, we replace the first character, and then we only need to replace one character with an X because it is the AI's turn, AI's move, so we use an X here. And we only want to do this, okay, we only want to do this if it is the AI's turn. So if this is true, and if B10 here is actually a dot, okay, if it's not the dots, it's not a possible move, so we don't need to do this. Okay. If we didn't need to do this, then we return empty string. Okay. Let's copy this formula all the way to here. Okay. Okay, this is because currently the gameport state shows that it is not AI's turn, so we have got nothing here. How about I remove this one? There we go. Okay, let's check this. For C1 is a dot. Okay, that means the AI can play this move possibly. So we have the state string here, and the third character is an X, which means AI plays this position. And for these two, they are empty because there is already a mark here in their position, so we do not generate the state string for them. Okay, same for C3 because there's already a mark here. Moving on to step 3, play the move if it immediately wins the game. Okay, that means we need to check whether each of this state here is a win for AI. We can do that by checking whether the state string match one of the winning state string, which is what I showed you in the beginning of the video at the bottom. I think it's a good time to explain what they are. So we already know what a state string is. Okay, it represents the game board status in a string. And what I've got here are the state strings of all AI winning states. That means they all have 3 marks in a diagonal, horizontal, or vertical row. When the game board matches one of these states, it means AI wins the game. At the bottom, I also have 2 more lists. Here, okay. This one is for draw states, and I also have a list of losing states. Let's look at the winning states again. Okay, there are in total, let's count them, 316 winning states. We can remove many of them if we take rotations and reflections into account. For example, O, X, O, let's say this is a game board. This one is actually the same as this one. Because if I just rotate this top one 90 degrees to the right, I can actually get the same thing as the bottom one. In fact, if we optimize this draw states, there should only be 3 truly unique draw states in Tic Tac Toe. Okay, let me remove this first. Okay. Clear, no border. Now that we know what these winning states are, checking whether the next move is a winning move is easy. We just need to do an index match to see if the state string matches one of the winning states. Winning move. Okay, let's put one in this cell because this one is not empty. If this string is not empty, then we will do a match this string with the winning state list. I create a name for the list so it's easier to do it here, and I want it to be exact match. If the result is greater than 0, that means there's a match. Otherwise, return false. However, I also want to wrap it around with a if error, because the match function will return an error if it cannot find the match. Okay, hold on. D15 if match. Okay, I have an extra one here. This should be D. Okay, let's copy this formula. Now we can test it. Okay, set up the game board in such a way that there's a next possible move that the AI can win. How about this one? Oh. Okay. The AI, it is AI's turn, and if it places a mark on C1, it will win immediately. And great, we have a true value here, which means if the AI plays C1, it will win on the next turn, which is what we want to do. How about we create a scenario that the AI can win with more than one choice? How about this? Okay, should be this. Okay, so AI can win on the next turn if it marks C1 or C3. So we have two true values here. Okay, this is possible. Now we need to decide which one the AI should pick. So let's add a new field here, selected winning move. In this case, it doesn't really matter because this is a winning move. AI picks either one, the result is the same, AI wins and the game ends. So we can just use index match to get the first winning move it finds. So pick this range and then match a true value. We want to look up true within this range and exact match. Okay, so it looks for the first one with a true value, so it returns C1. Okay. This video is getting really long. I'm gonna stop here and we'll build step 4, 5, and 6 in the next video. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe before you go. Part 2 of this video will be available next week. Until then, take care.